Episode 156, The Power of a Faithful Mother with Christi Davis.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
We all want to have a good relationship with our children. We all want them to make good choices. We all want them to be happy and stay close to the Lord. But despite some of our greatest efforts, our children are not always going to follow the formula that will lead them on the path we think they should go. Coach Christi Davis is on the podcast today talking about her book entitled The Power of a Faithful Mother. She wrote this book because she followed the formula of being a righteous mother, and yet many of her children made choices that the formula should not have produced. It forced her to rework the formula and find one that allowed her to have a strong and amazing relationship with her children despite their choices. This is an amazing episode and one any mother or father should listen to if they feel like they did all the right things and still had children make choices they hoped they wouldn't. Christi will show you that there is still so much hope in having a good relationship with your children, as well as help you see that the path your children are on may very well be the exact one they need to be on to get to where they need to be. If you would like to work with Christi and have her help you gain hope in your children and the choices they are making, please reach out to her through the link in the show notes. Enjoy this episode.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the podcast today. I have Coach Christi Davis with me. Hey, Christi.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Christi's been on before, and it's always a delightful conversation.
Yeah, we have a good time, don't we?
Yes, we do. I like to think that I always have a good time when I'm here talking with you guys. Christi, she's written a book, and I'm so excited to talk to her about it today. But before we jump into that, I'm going to have her introduce herself, even though, like I said, she has been on before. I still think there's going to be people that are listening that didn't hear that book, that didn't hear the first one. Or the second one. I don't know. How many times have you been on with me?
I think only once before, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, Christi, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Christi Davis. I am a certified life coach. I'm also the mother of 7 children. They are ages 20. It changes all the time. 26, I think, down to 12. I have 4 grandbabies. So we are just, multiplying and replenishing the earth over here. It's so fun.
Grandbabies, boys, girls, what are they?
I have 1 boy and 3 girls for the grandbabies.
And what about your own children? What's the mix there?
My oldest 2 are daughters and then 5 boys in a row.
Oh boy, bless you.
So it was an adjustment, I'll tell you, because I grew up one of there were 6 girls in my family and 1 boy. And so I had 2 girls. I thought I was going to be a girl mom. And then we had these 5 boys, and I have, adjusted and learned a lot and really embraced it. I love being a boy mom.
That is awesome. Do you know that that's me? I'm one of 6 girls and 1 boy.
Oh, funny. I did not know that we had that in common.
That is really funny. My brother passed away when we were younger, so we grew up with just the 6 girls for the most part, but he's still very much part of our family. But there's something about, I don't know, there's something about sisters. I'm so glad I have mine.
Sisters are so great.
They are.
So anyway, I coach on family relationships. I especially help parents of teenagers and young adults who are, I put in quotes, struggling. Like the kids are not necessarily going with the program and the parents don't know what to do about it. And I coach on this because this has been me. This has been my life experience. And I just have learned so much over the process of the last few years and raising the kids I've raised that I just want to share what I've learned and save other people, like shorten the learning curve maybe for some other people. So, and I love it. And it feels so rewarding. And there's nothing better than when I have a client get on and say, oh my gosh, I tried some of the things we talked about and my child is responding to me totally differently. Like things are really changing in our house. And I just love that so much.
That's amazing. You're right. It is such rewarding work. And what you just said about what clients have come to you, like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, is so true in every relationship in our life. We spend so much time trying to change other people, and it really takes just like a little bit on our part, and a lot of major things can happen.
There is so much that we can do within ourselves that change. Like, yeah, you're right. We focus so much on trying to change the other person. And I think this is especially true and tricky when we're talking about the parenting relationship.
Yes.
Because there is so much we're in charge of teaching them. And so it gets tricky. Like, how do I know which part is mine? But always there's something we can change in how we are being and approaching the situation that will totally change the relationship. So
yeah, for sure.
It's fun.
We can't control other people. That's the thing that we would love to do as parents, but we can have great influence. And I think the key is learning the difference between controlling and influencing, and like small changes in us will have a great influence on the people around us.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's talk about this book.
So this is why I wrote this book. It is called The Power of a Faithful Mother. And the subtitle is Parenting in the Latter Days with a Faith-Filled Mindset. And I'll tell you kind of how it came up is I grew up thinking, kind of with a black and white view of the gospel. I think a lot of us did. And maybe it's just the early stages of faith. If, you've probably talked on here about the stages of faith before, but in my mind as a young parent, things were pretty black and white. And I saw the gospel and gospel parenting in particular as kind of a formula, where I do this and then my children do this. Like I do this and this is the blessings that I will get. And this is how it's all going to work out. And it seemed like a pretty, straightforward formula. And so I just really poured my heart and soul into parenting that way. And we did all the things, like, of course, not perfectly, but we did daily scripture study and family prayer and family meals together and family home evening. And we went to church and we served in our call, all the things.
We did those I do.
Really faithfully. And I don't know how much detail to go into here, but like at one point, actually, my husband was the first one to really struggle with his faith. He had what we now lovingly on the other side of it, we refer to, as a midlife crisis, but he had a real crisis of his faith and he left the church for a while. And then he's back now and our relationship has stayed great. But I have watched my kids struggle with things, one by one. And my kids are very open and they don't mind if I share. So I'll just tell you, we have had kids who have struggled with pornography use. We've had kids do drugs. We've had kids, we had a daughter get married or get pregnant before she was married. We have had mental health issues. We have had somebody drop out of high school. We have had like a lot of things that I just never saw coming. I thought that if I taught the gospel, then we were going to avoid some of the big ones. I knew we'd have little bumps, but like, I thought we'd avoid the big ones. And so it was pretty disorienting to me to find out that that's not how it worked. And I got really discouraged and I kind of started to question then what exactly is my point? Like, what's my role? What is the goal here? What am I trying to do? And I felt defeated. I felt like maybe I was a failure. I felt kind of powerless. And that's such a horrible place to be.
Yeah, it is. It's so interesting. I was actually talking with a client today that was saying much of the same thing. She's like, if the things I do cannot guarantee what my kids are going to do or become, like, what's the point? Like, why even do any of this?
Yeah.
And which is such a great question. But if you think about it, like if we start to question it that way, and if we really believe that A plus B is going to equal C for us, there'd be no point, right? Like there would be no point in us trying to parent, because it wouldn't make any difference at all if it was just up to chance. It would just be up to chance, really. It can feel very helpless. So real.
Yeah. Okay, so let me just read you just a couple paragraphs from my book. So I said, I have to admit, when I first accepted the fact that there was no way for me to guarantee my children would always remain faithful, I felt a little defeated, powerless even. What was the point then of all my efforts to create a Christ-centered home? What exactly was I trying to accomplish, and how was I to go about it? Asking myself these questions has led me on a beautiful journey that has strengthened my faith, deepened my joys, and increased my capacity to love. It has also helped me discover where real power can be found and define where I want to focus my efforts. So I would just say to anyone who is in that place where you're talking about, I know it feels kind of bleak from that perspective, but really this is the beginning of something great. When you start asking those questions is when you start developing deeper faith than you ever even knew was possible.
Yeah. I sometimes like to think of it's like when you start actually practicing faith for the first time. I mean, there is that simple faith of the beginning stages of faith, but to me, it's more just of it's borrowed. It's leaning on somebody else's for the most part. And I think when I started asking questions like that and really delving in, I could honestly say, and now I'm practicing faith for the first time in my life. And it feels extremely different.
Yeah, very different. But I think that's the point, right?
Yes.
This is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And sometimes parenting is the method that Heavenly Father uses to teach us what he needs to teach us.
Yeah.
So it's actually been a beautiful journey.
Okay. So when I found out that you'd written a book, there was a part of me that was a little bit jealous because I'm jealous of anybody who actually takes that little inkling, that little nudge that they've had and they run with it. And I've kind of had that nudge, that little inkling myself, but there's this little thing that always wiggles up inside of me that's like, yeah, but who are you? Like, who are you to like write a book on this topic? And I just always want to know. I always want to ask the authors, does that come up for you? Like, who am I to do this?
Yeah. So it does come up for sure. It comes up in a lot of areas in my life. This one, I have to say, not as much because I have this like passion for, I have been through so much and learned some things the hard way. And so I just really feel strongly about, I want to help other people and shorten their learning curve. And I really feel strongly a call from Heavenly Father to help strengthen other mothers, to use my experiences to help strengthen other mothers. And so, I mean, it comes up a little bit, but mostly I just feel a really strong desire to help.
Well, and then when you were telling us about the different circumstances and trials, I will say trials, we don't have to look at them that way, but some people would, that you have experienced with your children. And for sure, like you have the life experience to share and teach us about this.
Yep. Learned a lot of things through trial and error.
Well, that's
and I have to say, even though we've been through some of those hard things, none of them have ruined our relationships with the relationships I have with my kids. I consider it one of my greatest wins as a parent. That, like, for example, when one of my kids was in the middle of a pretty deep depression, there were nights when he did not want to be alive. And during those nights, he would come wake me up and I would go lay in his bed with him. I consider that the hugest win and such an honor. When my daughter found out she was pregnant, it was one of the first people she called because she wanted to come to me for comfort and for guidance. And I consider that a win, that our relationships are those kind of relationships that I am a welcome influence in my children's lives.
So sweet.
Yeah.
So for sure, that's a win. And I wonder, I mean, I know how that's created. I haven't lived in your house. I haven't lived in your shoes, but just from experience, and I know that they obviously feel safe and not judged, and you've created an open place for them. But how would you, like anybody listening, how do you think you would share with them how to keep those relationships intact? I know that's a loaded question, but
yeah, so there's a lot to that. And this is one of the things that I wanted this book to be, is kind of like a roadmap for you. Okay, if we know the goal is to keep those kind of relationships, and I know that I can't control their behaviors, then where do I focus? Like, how do I get there? And so the way the book is divided up is into 10 different chapters, and each one is the power of something. There's the power of knowing who you are. the power of faith, the power of relationships, the power of covenants, the power of joy. Anyway, the power of the things that we really can do, the place where we want to focus our energy, that will create that kind of a feeling in your home and that kind of a relationship with your kids. So I thought maybe today we could talk about just two of those that I feel like are a really big deal in getting there.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So the first one I want to talk about is the power of faith. And we've already talked about this a little bit. Like, we thought we knew what faith was, right? We thought that faith was believing in the straight and narrow plan. Like, if you followed this, we thought faith was A plus B is going to equal C.
Yes.
Turns out that's not faith. That's just the beginning of faith. And the real faith comes when things are not going according to plan. And what do we do then? And how do we stay faithful and optimistic and when that's not the case? Okay, so I'm going to just tell you, I'm going to tell you a couple of principles that I feel like I have learned, like as I realized that faith was something different than I thought. Okay, here's one thing I've learned, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm blasphemous for saying this. Okay, so just hang in with me till we get to the end.
No one's going to think that.
Okay.
If they do, they probably heard something more blasphemous from me.
Okay, good. So I kind of thought that the straight and narrow, I'm going to put this in quotes, the way we talk about it, like going to church and checking the boxes and following the rules and keeping all the commandments, I thought that was the only way or the best way. And I learned it's actually not the only way to grow closer to God. In fact, I don't even think it's the right way for everyone. Now, let me explain what I mean. So let's think about Adam and Eve, right? The Lord placed them in the garden and he said, okay, here are your instructions. You can partake of all the fruit you want to except this one. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is off limits unless you want to die, which you can. He gave them the option, right? You can choose that if you want to. So we could say that the straight and narrow for Adam and Eve was to not partake of that fruit, right? That was the plan.
Yeah.
If they were following the plan, the rules, that would be the plan. And yet there came to a point where they realized that they were stuck and they couldn't progress any further unless they ate of that fruit. So there were things that they had to learn that they couldn't possibly learn if they stayed in the garden. So we know how it went. They partook of the fruit, and it turns out that was actually the best decision ever. Did it make their lives harder? Yes, absolutely. And did they feel distanced from God? Yes. And did they have some serious consequences to pay and some repenting to do? Yes, to all of that. And it was exactly the thing they needed in order to progress and actually grow closer to God in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be clear that I 100% believe in the covenant path. I believe that when we keep God's commandments, we will be blessed. And in some ways, our lives might be easier. But at least for some people, there comes a point where they are kind of stuck. And stepping off the straight and narrow path is what they need to do in order to learn that thing that they need to learn. This is exactly what happened with my husband. He'd been checking boxes and keeping commandments all of his life. But he got to a point where he was actually pretty far away from God, even when he was doing all the things right. He'd gotten stuck somewhere along the way and he wasn't progressing anymore. And so when he stepped away from activity in the church is when he was finally able to let go of some guilt and some shame and some pressure and things that he had been carrying around for years. So somehow in his mind, shame and commandments had gotten all tangled up in his mind and in his heart, and he just couldn't untangle it all until he stepped away. He had to let things unravel for him before he was able to see things in a different light and more objectively. And it took time, but he figured out his own unhealthy tendencies and his own thinking patterns that were actually causing the guilt and the shame and the pressure. And he learned a lot about himself in that time that I don't think he could have learned if he didn't have some space from mainstream church activity. So I know not everybody needs that. I've never needed that, but he really did. And so the testimony he has now actually brings him peace and joy, something that he wasn't experiencing before his little detour. And
Well, it
so
was
now
hard
I've seen
fought
that
too, right? Like he
yes,
worked for that testimony.
he worked for it and he chose it on purpose.
Yeah.
Like I think he had just kind of gotten on the conveyor belt of the gospel before and
Yeah.
didn't feel like he had ever chosen it. And so now it's absolutely a choice.
Mm.
And I've watched the same thing happen with my kids. Some of the choices they've made are the exact opposite of what they were taught. And they have definitely tasted of some of the forbidden fruits. But in each case, so far, they've learned really valuable lessons and they are learning things about themselves and having to really figure out their own relationships with God and have their decisions made things more difficult for them. Absolutely. But that's okay because this is how they are choosing to learn is by their own experience.
Mm-hmm. You know, I've had that thought about Adam and Eve so many times. Like they had to disobey to do what was the right path for them.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that we're intentionally going out and disobeying. It just means that, I mean, obviously they figured it out, right? They figured it out. They figured out that there was something bigger and greater for them. And that meant that they were going to have to trust their own instincts. And also, I think in that trusting our own instincts is knowing that our inner core is inseparably connected to our Heavenly Father. And if we can really look in, which includes looking up, we will make choices that will be helpful to us, will benefit us and lead us the way that we need to.
Absolutely. So that requires a lot of faith as a parent to watch your kids go through that process and trust that it's all going to turn out okay.
Yeah.
And I worry that sometimes as parents, we're trying to teach faith, but we're accidentally sending the exact opposite message that we're hoping to send because we tell our kids that we believe in Jesus Christ and we believe the atonement, but we are clearly terrified of them stepping out of line and making mistakes. So which is it? Do we believe in agency and repentance or do we not? Do we trust the Lord to do his job or do we not?
Or do we not? And I think so much of that comes back to how we view God and our relationship with God. And if we have viewed him as that transactional, I get good for good and good for evil God, like Adam,
tally marks for every good thing. And,
then most likely we're going to parent that way as well. We're going to parent for two reasons, right? One, because we want our kids to be quote unquote happy. And also because we want to be seen as doing good and we're good if our kids are doing good. And so then God will think I'm doing good. And gosh, we have to really work on how we view him and what the true nature of our heavenly parents really is. Because when we can do that, it opens us up to parent in a way that is such more freeing.
Yes. So much more fun and so much more free.
Yeah. I say that all the time on here. It probably sounds like a broken record, but I think it's so important for us to do our own work as parents, to see how we view our heavenly parents and to really come to understand their true nature.
Yeah. I would love to write a book about agency, but I do not feel qualified yet. Like I still have a lot to learn, I think, before I'm ready to write that book. But I feel like I'm grasping just the beginnings of agency in the way that Heavenly Father understands it. And I know there's so much more there for me to learn.
Yeah, I agree. So, okay. So that was the power of
faith.
Faith.
Yeah, that's the first one I wanted to talk about. The second one is the power of joy. So I actually just recorded a podcast talking about joy, like from 4 angles. So joy is a commandment. Joy is a tool, joy is a skill, and joy is a blessing. So joy is another pretty big topic, but I'm going to just break it down to a couple of stories. So the first one is when I was very first married. Well, not very first, because we had a couple young kids, and I had this friend also with young kids, and they were late for a doctor's appointment or something. And you know how it is with young kids. You're trying to get everyone in the minivan and somebody doesn't have their shoes and somebody spills juice and somebody escapes and you're chasing them down. So she's trying to get all the kids, ready to go to the doctor. And one of her little boys says, "Mom, why do you have your Sunday face on?"
We all know what that face is.
We know the Sunday face, but she was like, "Oh, dagger to the heart. My kids associate my grumpy face, my stressed out face with Sunday, and for good reason. Like, we know why we wear that face on Sunday, but it's just such a wake up call. And I think sometimes we still might be doing the same things when our kids are teenagers. Like, we tell them that the gospel brings us joy. But I wonder if we weren't saying that with words, like, would they know? Would they be able to tell by the way we live our lives that we are filled with joy?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Or we tell them that the most important thing is for us to be together as a family forever, but then we nag them and criticize them so much that they don't even want to spend Monday night with us, let alone eternity. Right?
Seems like a very long time to be with someone you don't really enjoy
to
spending
a grumpy,
time
naggy
with.
mom.
Yes.
So it's just, of course, none of us are going to be perfect at this. And I don't mean it to make us feel guilty, because it's hard. We are doing hard work, but it's just something to think about. Like, if I weren't telling my kids these things with words, would they be able to see joy radiating from me? Is that what they feel when they think about coming home? Does it feel joyful to them? Or does it feel stressful, or like they're going to get judged, or we're going to bring up whether or not they're going to college again, or, whatever it is? This was years ago, but we had this Relief Society Mother's Day lesson where they invited all the priests, the 16 to 18-year-old boys, to come in and like talk about what they loved about their moms. So they're lined up in front of us on Mother's Day, and they're just going down the line, and each boy is telling what they loved about their moms. And so many of them, it was so cute. So many of them were like, food, my mom makes the best food, or my mom washes my stinky football uniforms, or my mom has never missed a game, or whatever. And they were all sweet answers. But then we get to this one kid named Jesse, who was just so thoughtful and a little bit different socially. Like, he didn't care about sports or whatever. The nicest kid ever. And he gave a really thoughtful answer. He said, the thing I love most about my mom is that I can tell she loves being our mom. I know just by watching her that there is nothing she would rather be doing than being our mom. And I was like, okay, that's my motherhood goal right there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the kind of mom where my kids are just drawn to me, where they can't wait to tell me something good that's going on in their life, or something hard that's going on in their life. Or when they think about coming home, they know it's going to feel good because of how it feels in their home.
Yeah.
That is so powerful. Sister Runia talked about this in this last conference, right? I loved it so much. She talked about, instead of chasing our kids down to criticize them and judge them, about just staying at the tree. She's talking about, Lehi's vision of the tree of life, and we can stay at the tree and partake of the fruit and make it look like such a wonderful place to be that our kids are drawn to it. We just stand there and beckon them, invite them into that, but just send the message through who we are and how we're living our lives, that the gospel is joy and that eternal families are joy.
Oh, that is amazing food for thought to think about. And on both of those areas, in faith and in joy, like things that we can really.
Yeah. And those are things that we can do ourselves. We don't have to wait for our kids to be ready to change or anything. That's work that we need to do on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that gives us plenty to focus on when we're wondering, okay, my kid's struggling. What am I supposed to be doing? We can be focusing on ourselves and on our own faith and on our own joy. And that will have huge benefits to our kids.
Mm-hmm. Amazing benefits, actually. Yeah. I think of in my life, the relationships that have changed merely because I decided to spend a few minutes here and there working on some things within myself and learning new ways to respond and some new perspectives on things so that I can think differently about something so that I can respond to differently. And
yes,
it is just small and simple things. Great things are brought to pass. We know that.
Yeah. My husband said one time, like, if you never make $1 as a life coach, the things you've learned there have so dramatically changed our family. Like, such a blessing for my family.
I have felt just the same way, actually. If I never made, and I've thought that many times, if I've never made $1, the impact that it's had on my life and the things that the different person that I am today than I was 6 or 7 years ago is, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's been the best use of time and money and energy ever.
All the things. Okay. Yeah. Well, before we go, is there anything else you feel like we need to know about this? First of all, we need to know where we can get your book, because I need to get out and get it myself. We'll be sure to link to it in the show notes. But
okay. Yeah, you can find it on Amazon.
Okay.
When I saw it on Amazon, I felt like such a grown-up or something.
I bet you did.
It's crazy to see a book that I wrote on Amazon. It's so fun. I don't have it available on Audible yet. My husband is like, I'm going to read it as soon as you put it on Audible. So for those of you who don't read, I'm still working on that, but it's on Amazon, The Power of a Faithful Mother. And then also I have a podcast where I talk about a lot of these principles. It's called Liking the People You Love.
Love it.
So you can come find me on my podcast as well.
You know, I love that title. I just have to say, because there's so many times I know when my kids were little that I was like, gosh, I love this kid, but I just really don't like this kid right now.
Yes.
And
it happens again when they're teenagers, right?
Yes, I think it's something we get to relearn frequently, but yeah, that's a great title.
Yeah, because none of us struggle with loving our kids. Sometimes maybe we struggle a little with liking them.
Yeah. Aren't we glad? What a gift that is, that love, that piece of love that we just, it just connects us to them always and forever. So
Yep.
It's amazing. Well, Christi, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I am super excited about this book and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I think it's so awesome. So
thank you. Yeah. It was a big bucket list item for me. I've just always known that someday I wanted to write a book, and now I have.
Here it is. I love it. Okay. Well, everybody, we'll share a link in the show notes, so you can go grab a copy of the book yourself. We would love for you to read that and learn some more about about the power of a faithful mother. So thanks, Christi.
Yep. Thank you.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.